Hello there. Welcome to your next math lesson. Go ahead and open up your math notebook to the next available page, please. And at the top of that page, write the title of today's lesson, which is Add Mixed Numbers. All right. So when you add mixed numbers, you just have to follow 4 simple steps. Go ahead and write these steps down with me. The first step is make common denominators. And that's if you need to. Sometimes we can skip that step because we might already have common denominators. Whoops. Step 2 is add the whole number part. Step 3 is add the fraction part. And actually, it doesn't matter if you do step 2 first or step 3 first. These steps could be switched and it wouldn't change the answer. And step 4 is simplify. Okay, let's apply these steps to a problem where we have to add mixed numbers. Let's say we have to add 4 3/5 plus 3 1/5. So these are both mixed numbers because they have a whole number part and a fraction part. 4 3/5. 4 is the whole number part. 3/5 is the fraction part. That's what makes it a mixed number. That's what a mixed number is. It's a number that has a whole number part and a fraction part. And the way you say it is by saying the whole number, then saying the word and, then saying the fraction. 4 3/5. 3 1/5. Now, in this example, we don't have to do step 1, which is make common denominators, because 3/5 and 1/5 are already like fractions. So they already have the same denominator, which is 5. Step 2 is add the whole number part. So the whole number part is 4 plus 3, and 4 plus 3 is 7. Step 3 is add the fraction part. So the next thing we do is we add 3/5 to 5/5. Now, remember that when we're adding fractions, we only add the numerators together. We add the 3 plus the 1, and we get 4. We do not add the 5 to the 5. The denominator stays the same. Whatever the denominator is in both addends, that's the denominator in the sum as well. And that's why we have to have common denominators whenever we're adding fractions, because the denominator stays the same. If it's different in both fractions, you don't know what to make it in the sum. It has to be the same in the sum as it is in both of the addends. And so step 4 is simplify, but 4/5 is already in simplest form. 4 and 5 won't have any common factors greater than 1. So our final answer is 7 4/5. Let's do another example together. Let's say we had 7 4/11 plus 2 6/11. Okay, both of these, again, are mixed numbers because they have a whole number part and a fraction part. 7 4/11 plus 2 6/11. We get to skip step 1 again because it says make common denominators, but 4/11 and 6/11 already have the same denominator of 11. Step 2 is add the whole number part. 7 plus 2 is 9. And step 3 is add the fraction part. 4/11 plus 6/11 will be 10/11 because 4 plus 6 is 10, and the denominator 11 stays the same. And 10/11 is already in simplest form. It's not an improper fraction or anything like that. So we can skip step 4 as well, and our final answer is 9 10/11. Those were both pretty easy because the answers didn't have to be simplified and because the fraction part of both of the addends were like fractions. Let's try one that's a little bit harder now. Let's say we have 5 1/12 plus 6 1/4. Whoops, I accidentally wrote 1/2. It's supposed to be 1/12. 5 and 1/12 plus 6 and 1/4. Now, on this one, we do have to do step 1. It says make common denominators. We can't add these fractions together the way they are right now because they're not like fractions. And whenever you're in a situation like this, I always recommend that you stack the problem. I wouldn't try to solve fractions where I wouldn't try to solve addition or subtraction problems with fractions where they don't have common denominators. I would never try to do that long ways. I would always write them up and down, stack them on top of each other. Because that way you can make the equivalent fractions that have the same denominator to the sides of the two fractions that you're already working with. So we have to make common denominators, which means we have to make 1/12 and 1/4 like fractions. And the way that we do that is by taking both denominators, we'll do it down here, 12 and 4, and we list the multiples for them both until we find the LCM, the least common multiple. And it's just going to be the first number that's in both lists. So we count by 12s, and we're not going to have to count any farther than the first multiple of 12, which is 12, because we know 12 is a number we will get to if we're counting by 4s. 4 is a multiple of 12. So now we count by 4s, 4, 8, 12. So we can see that 12 is the LCM, the least common multiple of 12 and 4. So now we make new fractions off to the side. We don't actually have to make a new fraction for 1/12 because it already has 12 as a denominator, but we do have to make an equivalent fraction to 1/4 with 12 as its denominator. And we're going to make sure it's equivalent to 1/4 by multiplying the same thing by the top that we multiply by the bottom. So we just have to think, what times 4 equals 12? That's 3. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. 1 times 3 equals 3. So now 3/12 is an equivalent fraction to 1/4, but it's a like fraction with 1/12. So that means we're ready to add. So 6 and 1/4 means the same thing as 6 and 3/12, but now we can add it to 5 and 1/12 because we have like fractions. We have the same denominator. Okay, step 2 is add the whole number part. We have 5 plus 6, and that's 11. Then we add the fraction part. 1 plus 3 is 4, and the denominator 12 stays the same. So our answer is 11 and 4/12. Now, step 4 is simplify. And 4 and 12, the numerator and denominator of this answer, 4 and 12, they will have common factors. So we list the factors of 4, which are 1, 2, and 4, and we list the factors of 12, which are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. You couldn't see the whole thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. And the reason these are all the factors of 4 is because 1 times 4 is 4 and 2 times 2 is 4. So these are all the numbers that can be multiplied together to equal 4. And 1 times 12 is 12, 2 times 6 is 12, and 3 times 4 is 12. These are all the numbers that can be multiplied together to equal 12. We circle the GCF, which is 4. And we divide the numerator and denominator by the GCF. And 4 divided by 4 is 1. 12 divided by 4 is 3. Now, is 1/3 the answer? No, I actually shouldn't have circled it because 1/3 is not the answer. 1/3 is just a simplified form of the fractional part of the answer. The actual answer is 11 and 1/3. So I would never leave this like this. If this had to be graded by somebody else, I don't think it would be very clear to the grader what the final answer is. So since my final answer is 11 and 1/3, I would always write that 11 and 1/3 and circle my final answer. Okay, let's do another one. Let's do let's say we have to add 6 and 1/9 plus 2 and 1/3. Oops, you couldn't even see it, sorry. 6 and 1/9 plus 2 and 1/3. Now, step 1 is make common denominators, and we do have to do that because 9 and 3 are, because 1/9 and 1/3 are not like fractions. They don't have the same denominator. And again, anytime you have unlike fractions, always start by stacking them. Never try to solve them long ways like this. It's just going to get too messy. Now, step 2, you can't see the steps anymore, but hopefully you wrote them down so you have them in your own notebook so you can see them there. Step 2 is, actually, we're still on step 1, which is make common denominators. We have 9 and 3, so we have to list the multiples for 9 and the multiples for 3 until we get a number in both lists. So the first multiple of 9 is 9, and we know we're going to get to 9 counting by 3s, so we can stop right there. 3, 6, 9. So our LCM is 9, which means that's what we're going to use as our common denominator, or our LCD, lowest common denominator. Okay, so we're going to make an equivalent fraction next to 1/3, but it's going to have 9 as the denominator. We don't need to change 1/9 because it already has 9 as its denominator. Now we multiply from 3 to 9. 3 times 3 is 9. And whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. 1 times 3 is 3. Now, step 2 is add the whole number part. And since this is right here, I'm going to write the answer over here. 6 plus 2. 6 plus 2 is 8. And 1 plus 3 is 4. And my denominator, 9, stays the same. So I have 8 and 4/9 as my final answer to this. And 4 and 9 won't have any common factors, and it's not an improper fraction, so it's already in simplest form. This paper is getting a little bit messy. It's got a lot of stuff on it, so I'm going to go to a new, fresh piece of paper now. Just realized these papers are facing the wrong direction. There we go. Got to get the holes on the left side. Okay, let's do another one. Let's say we had 5 and 1/3 plus 6 and 1/2. Step 1 is make common denominators, and I do have to do that because I don't have like fractions. So the first thing I'm going to do is stack these up. 5 and 1/3 plus 5 and 1/3 plus 6 and 1/2. So now I'm going to write 3 and 2, my two denominators, and I'm going to list the multiples for each of them until I find the first number that's in both lists, or the lowest common multiple, the LCM. 3, 6, 9, 12. I'll just stop right there, and then I'll move on to 2. 2, 4, 6. And look, I have a number that's in both lists. It's 6. So now I'm going to make two new fractions off to the right of these two fractions, but they're both going to have 6 as their denominator. And I'm going to multiply from my old denominator to my new denominator. 2 times 3 is 6, and then whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 1 times 3 is 3. And I do the same thing here. 3 times 2 is 6, and then whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 1 times 2 is 2. And now step 2 is add the whole number part. 5 plus 6 is 11. Step 3 is add the fraction part. 2 plus 3 is 5. My denominator 6 stays the same. And 5 and 6 won't share any common denominators, and it's not an improper fraction, so this answer is already in simplest form. Let's do a couple more examples together. Let's say I'll just go ahead and stack this one to start with since they're not like fractions. 3 and 4/9 plus 4 and 2/3. Now, since I already did a problem with 9 and 3 as the denominator, I already know 9 is the lowest common multiple for 9 and 3. So I'm going to start out by making an equivalent fraction off to the right. It's going to have 9 as its denominator, but it's going to be equivalent to 2/3. And that's going to make it so I can add this part to this part, since they'll both have 9 as the denominator for their fraction part. So 3 times what equals 9? 3 times 3 equals 9. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. 2 times 3 equals 6. Okay, now I have 3 and 4/9 plus 4 and 6/9. Now, step 2 is add the whole number part. 3 plus 4 is 7. And then add the fraction part. 4 plus 6 is 10. And my denominator 9 stays the same. So my answer is 7 and 10/9. Is it okay for me to leave this answer the way it is right now? No, it's not, because 10/9 is an improper fraction. And what do I do with an improper fraction? Its numerator's too big. Its numerator is bigger than its denominator. Its head is too big. So what I do here is I divide the denominator into the numerator, because 10/9, what this means is it's actually more than a whole. 9/9 would be one whole. So this says 7 and 10/9. That almost makes it sound like it's less than 8. But this is actually going to be more than 8, because I have 7 wholes. And then I have more than another whole for my fraction, 10/9. It's improper because it's written as a fraction, but it's actually a mixed number. It has a whole number part to it, and that part needs to be separated off. The way I do that is by dividing the denominator into the numerator. So 9 can fit into 10 one time, and then I multiply. 1 times 9 is 9. I subtract. 10 minus 9 is 1. And I change it into a mixed number by writing my remainder as a fraction. So I put a fraction line here. Whatever my remainder is, that's my numerator. And then my divisor is my denominator. So it's 1 and 1/9. Now, is that my final answer? No. That's just the fraction part of the answer changed into a mixed number. But I still have this 7 here. So I have to give this 1 and 1/9 back to the 7. So now I have to go like this: 7 plus 1 and 1/9. And 7 plus 1 is 8. And the 1/9, there's no fraction to add to the 1/9. So it just drops over into the answer. 7 plus 1 and 1/9 is 8 and 1/9. And that's my final answer. These are pretty hard, so I'm going to do a few more examples with you. Let's see. Let's do 6 3/4 plus 3 1/8. Okay. Now, the first thing I have to do is make common denominators. I can't add 6 3/4 to 3 1/8 because 3 and 8 don't have common denominators. 3/4 and 1/8 are not like fractions. So I have to list the multiples for 4 and 8 until I find a number that's in both lists. So 4, 8. And once you get to the second number that you're listing multiples for, you know that you're done, because the first multiple of 8 will be 8. So that's my LCM. So now I'm going to make equivalent fractions. I don't actually need to do one here because this one already has 8 as its denominator, but I will do one here. And now I multiply from my old denominator to my new denominator. 4 times 2 equals 8. Whatever you do to the bottom, do to the top. 3 times 2 equals 6. Now I add the whole number part. 6 plus 3 is 9. 6 plus 1 is 7. And my denominator 8 stays the same. So my final answer is 9 7/8. And 7 and 8 won't have any common factors. And it's not an improper fraction or anything like that. So it's already in simplest form. And you know what? This video is already getting pretty long. So I think I'm going to end it now. Actually, first, I will just give you some independent work. So for your independent work, I would like you to do 9 9/10 plus 7 and 3/5. Go ahead and add those mixed numbers together. And then I'd also like you to do 4 and 3/6 plus 7 and 1/2. Okay, go ahead and solve both of these mixed number addition problems, and then click on the next video attached under this one to see if you did it correctly. I will see you there. Signing off.